Hi, I'm Amy, and I'm excited to be the guest designer for the Altenew Mixed Media Blog. If this is your first time to my channel, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Today's project is an art panel I made to remind myself that crafting is art. I'm starting out with a piece of 8.5 by 11 Yupo paper that I'm cutting down to 4 smaller pieces to ink with different color palettes. Yupo paper has a slick surface that allows alcohol inks to spread and create nifty patterns. Starting out by adding some alcohol blending solution. On my first panel, I'm starting with Persian blue ink, and I've added a few drops into the blending solution, which will help the ink to move on the paper. The blower I'm using is helping to move the ink throughout, and when you are working with alcohol inks, please make sure that you're working in a well-ventilated area. I am now adding citrus burst ink, and you can see where the yellow moves into the blue, it actually creates a green. I will continue to add that blending solution to help the inks move on the page. I'm going to be cutting these panels up, so I'm looking for different colors and different patterns that I can use on my final project. Now going to be adding some rubellite into the corner, and this pink, when it mixes with the blue, will make this really pretty purple. And again, I'm using that blower just to move that ink around so that way I can get some different colors and patterns on my page. I'm going to continue to add ink, add blending solution until I'm happy with the overall pattern on this panel. And I will continue the other panels in this same way, but just using different colors. The second panel is using wisteria ink and rubellite. As these colors mix, you can see the different patterns that are made on this panel. And again, I'm going to continue to add colors until I get the panel that I'm looking for. The third panel starts out with Shadow Creek, and as that alcohol ink moves around, I'm going to add some citrus burst just to get a different shade of green and then a little bit more of that Persian blue. And you can see the result on that third panel. The fourth panel is going to be bright pink. So I'm starting out with the rubellite, and then I'm adding in some yellow to get some deeper orange tones, and even more rubellite to go back to that dark pink. So now that I have all 4 of my panels, I'm going to set those aside, wait for them to dry, and my next step is I will be embossing on these panels with antique gold embossing powder. Grabbing the Happy Dreams stamp set and using embossing ink, I am stamping some different images that I picked out just randomly on these panels in places where I know I want to be cutting them out. And I tried to pick wispy, creative types of images, so you can see that I'm stamping with the feather here. I want to create a feeling of dreaminess and movement. So here I've added antique gold embossing powder to the stamped images, and you can heat emboss on Yupo paper. You just need to be really, really careful, and you need to move that heat tool all over the page, and as soon as you feel it kind of when it's done, move on to the next image. I'm now going to be using a variety of circle cutters that I have in my stash in order to cut circles out of these 4 panels. And I am cutting them out of different sizes ranging from 2" to 1/2 inch. And I will be collecting all of those circles, and I'm going to put those aside, and we will see those circles again when we are ready to assemble. And aren't they just beautiful? I love the alcohol ink panels, and then some of them have that little splash of heat embossing. So the next step is we're going to be preparing the background, and I'm using the feathery stencil. This is a great stencil to show movement and flow in an image. And on a piece of 8.5 by 11 inch heavyweight cardstock, I am putting my feathery stencil into one of the corners, and I will be using the antique gold ink spray. I'm not using a lot because this is not watercolor paper, so this paper cannot handle a lot of ink, but can handle a little bit, and you can see the image really start to show up. I then am putting the stencil to the other side. So you can see I flipped it, and I'm going to repeat this process. And so my final panel will have these feathers flowing on it, and that's the overall feeling that I'm trying to get. This is a piece of vellum, and I am treating it similarly, but this time I'm using sea glass ink spray. And since it's vellum, it really can't take that much water, so I'm being very careful with the amount of sea glass ink spray that I'm putting on. This vellum panel I will use to die cut images from the Itty Branches die set. You can see how cute all those little branches are, and they look beautiful with the vellum, very wispy. And here is our background, dry, and I have cut out the sentiment using brushed gold metallic cardstock and the fine alphabet die set. My sentiment is Latin for art for the sake of art, which is the point of our panel today. I want those letters to stand out and sit on top of the vellum, so I'm using the Nesting Rectangles die set in order to cut some panels that I will be putting those letters on. And here are those branches from the Itty Bitty branch set, so cute. And here's our circles, so beautiful and colorful. Here are the 3 rectangles cut from the Nesting Rectangle die set, and I'm lining them up using the grid mat because I will be adding my letters to them. Using your grid mat is a great idea to make sure that your letters are straight, and I'm even making sure that my rectangles are straight. And you can see that I am taping down the rectangles so that they will stay. I'm going to be gluing on the letters. You also could use a dry adhesive, but glue is just a little bit easier and a little bit faster. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up this A and add it on. And once you have that first letter, it's a little bit easier to move these down. Each of the words are going to be starting over on the side, so everything's going to line up right underneath that A. So you can see I'm putting the R in now. So our final sentiment, Ars Gratia Artis, art for the sake of art. And I love the shine from this paper, and the vellum is going to allow that background to pop up. So you can see as I start to put this on the background, we can still see the feathery stencil because the vellum is there, but the vellum is also making sure that those letters are able to be seen and they're not getting lost in the background. The hardest part of putting this together was definitely the circles. I made sure that I had a lot of different choices, and I was moving them around trying to figure out sizes and placement and what was going to go where while trying to maintain this flow. So I tried to go from the left to the right and trying to look like the bubbles are kind of popping up. I used the bitty branches made up out of vellum to continue this idea of wispy and flow and movement, because I feel like art, when I create, is like that. It's a flow, and you kind of have to get into the rhythm and you got to move it. So this is our finished panel. You can see all these really luscious layers, and I really love how this turns out, and this is actually on my wall that inspires me every day. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You have a great day.